Hey, good morning. Pep, how are you doing?
Hey, yeah, I'm yeah, laughing because we've met a few minutes ago,
Yeah,
and I still want to give you a truthful answer. How am I doing now? I'm noticeably more excited than a few minutes ago before we were officially in session.
that's good.
Yeah,
That's
feeling
that's
joyful.
the that's the energy vibe that we already have going together. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean, we've known each other, I guess, for a couple weeks now. I love before we press record to talk just a little bit and just kind of get the juices flowing. That's a good thing. Yeah,
yeah.
and I appreciate the trust and the willingness to join me today. And like I mentioned, I'd like to start off with introduce yourself. Who is Pep, and what would you like the audience to hear, and what would you like me to hear?
Wow, those are the deep questions.
Yeah.
Um, so I guess the easiest way to answer it is to introduce myself as who I am in the public space, right?
Yeah.
So my work focuses on self connection, connection with others, connection with reality
Yeah.
or what's happening um, with life, and that can take many forms. So I'm a writer, but I also host events where either there is a structure that allows people to drop in and connect on a deeper level, or there's an implicit context and it's rather free,
Yeah.
but that's the purpose. Um, yeah, work with authentic relating, which is not something I invented, but I did train in it, and then I also just throw parties or things like that.
Well, what I
Yeah,
hear you saying, Pep, is you like to hold spaces for people in whatever context that you feel like is a goal for them or that they have,
yeah,
and that's wonderful. And I think you're totally right that that can take all kinds of forms. It's interesting. When I ask people to introduce themselves, some people are nervous, some people are excited. I think you're probably more excited than not. Um, it's great for them to kind of just share where they are right in that moment of time. And you don't have to describe, oh, I just do this or I just do that. I think it would be hard pressed for me to say one thing that I do other than wanting to just help
yeah,
people move towards higher vibrations, including myself, including you. And whatever that means for people, let's go with it. Let's let it flow. That's great. Yeah, I'd love for you in this introduction maybe to talk a little bit about some of the experiences that you've shared on X and maybe other platforms. I know you're on Instagram too. Um, that post that I think you still have pinned to your profile in X was really powerful for me to see because you're sharing your life experience through your own lens. And that is a humble and gratifying way, I think, for you to share your experience because that's what you lived through. And other people are going to get pieces of light from that that'll resonate with them in whatever way, shape, or form that we may not even know, and it's going to help people. I'm sure it's already helped people. So, yeah, continue with your introduction. If you want to touch on that or something else, I'd love to hear it.
yeah. I remember you commenting on that post, and I really felt appreciated, or I felt like I was receiving love in your comment. Um, it's interesting, I it's something I never thought would be valuable, and and in all honesty, like the reason I wrote that post
Yeah,
is because I realized, well, nobody has any real context about why I'm sharing what I share, or like which
yeah,
experience I'm basing it on. So it was kind of a marketing decision, okay,
yeah,
I'll just write up a little like bio of my life, and then I don't have real credentials, but I might have experiences that are relevant.
right.
And then I wrote it, and I got so much feedback akin to what you say of like, oh, it's exactly meaningful to me because it's not a story where you are placing your authority in something external.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that was the journey too.
Yeah.
Like, how do I find the authority that is in me without it being something that has to be imposed on others?
Yep.
and trust that and have it find its balanced place in interactions with others
Yeah.
too, and appreciate their authority. And
Yeah,
yeah,
it's got an authentic feel to it because it's your own experience. And I'm going to speak for you for a moment, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but
sure, yeah.
you, I think, have moved past anything that is ego or contrived. You're not. You mentioned marketing, and that's okay if you want to say it that way. But you're sharing your story not to say that what you went through is what everyone goes through, but you're
Oh
sharing
yeah,
your experience so people get to know you. And it sounds like you've gotten really positive feedback from it. I know I read the entirety of it. It's a lot. It's a lot of threads, which I've come to appreciate, even for me trying to share with people. Sharing your experience is the best way of your own lens helping people in ways that you might not have expected. And speaking of expectations, did you expect that type of feedback to come through to you? What did you think it would? What did you think you would get back if you had any
that's a
expectations
great
at all?
question. Yeah. um Yeah, by the way, I definitely wouldn't say I've moved past ego, but I agree with the fact that there's nothing contrived anymore, and that
Yeah,
felt like a big win because, to be honest with you, I used to be a big ass liar, like
right. You and me
right?
both, brother. You and me
Yeah,
both.
it was. Of course, I was young, and maybe that's just something that people go through. I don't know, but yeah, I remember that as I was writing it, as I was sharing it, um, part of like there was this little judgment going on of like, how is this going to be relevant to anyone? But there was also some trust, like, well, if right now I had the idea to write this, let's write it out. Like the worst that can happen is nobody cares. And
Right.
the best that can happen is some people are touched in some way, and it maybe reminds them of experiences they've had or didn't have. And in the end, whatever response anyone has
Yeah.
is theirs. So, even if the response would be negative, it would be a response that is theirs. And my overarching goal is putting people in touch with themselves. So whether if that's through sharing something of me or asking a question about you, doesn't really matter that much. And I had no clarity of like what's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, I think when each of us makes a choice like you did to share our light with the world, think of it like a flashlight or a lantern or anything. If we want to be old school about it, real old school, that light is going to come out and it's going to reflect back. And like you mentioned, and I think it's great that you brought up even negative comments, because I've talked with some other people who are like, gosh, I made this post on some platform, and some people just wrote back, yikes, like a very judgment type thing. And they would say, well, I went and deleted all those comments. And my response was, you should do whatever you want. But however, I'd encourage you to consider not deleting the negative comments, because someone else may see that negative comment and they'll think, gosh, Pep made this post and someone wrote back that negative thing. And I don't feel that way at all. And I actually got a lot from it. And that's going to help someone as well. Or even the person that makes the negative post, if you respond, if you respond at all, if you respond in turn with more light and compassion for whatever they're feeling and just let that be, they might over time come around to being like, Pep might have been onto something when he was talking about that. So yeah, I'd give yourself, some due credit to just trusting yourself to just put yourself out there. When any of us do this, or you and I being in a conversation here recording, it has a huge impact, much more than we might think. And if more of us could consider just sharing our stories, whether one person reads it, no one reads it, I believe very firmly it's going to help someone, even if it's you helping yourself to just get that out and have it be like a public journal. I think it's huge. So I love that you made the time to do that. How long ago did you make that post? How has it been? A long time since you did that?
No, it was a year and a month ago, like a big
Okay.
year ago. I haven't been on X that long actually.
Yeah.
And
I joined in March. When did you join? I'm curious. In March of
um,
last year.
March of last year, yeah, like 4 months before that, something. November the year before. But
Yeah.
initially I wasn't like fully fully seeing it yet. What's there to love? I was just exploring, and it took me
Right.
a while to see like, whoa, this is a special place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but I'm struck by something you said. It was about that little negative comment potentially impacting someone else, like into a compassionate response.
Right.
And yeah, it's like it's really nonlinear how we did how these things affect. So that was beautiful.
Yeah.
And another thing that came to me and where I recognize in myself, where I sometimes choose not to follow through on the response that I have, and it's something like what you described.
Yeah.
Okay, am I going to delete these negative replies, right?
Right.
Well, I sure want to because they hurt and they're publicly like impacting my
Yeah.
image. Um, and but the part of me that wants to do that, that wants to control that perception and like remove that negativity out of existence, that's the same energy of the person who made that comment and wanted to basically like invalidate the existence of my perspective. So
Correct.
I'm just like letting that enter me and then expressing it again, or
Right.
I can just love it as it is.
Yeah.
I had a huge fear of this when I joined Instagram, um, and I wanted to make reels. I don't make them anymore, but
Okay.
started with the first reel I made. I was so scared, and I thought I want to say this thing, and it matters to me, and I know it's true, but I just worry that people will criticize me for it. And it wasn't
I
like a controversial statement. It was a fairly mild post, but then I made it and I was harshly criticized
yeah.
immediately. And I got triggered so badly and like trying to change their mind and and like argue like, can't you see that I'm not going to share the whole context, but in their criticism, they were basically embodying the very thing that I was talking about in the post, and was this whole rabbit hole. And I wanted to make them see, and then I realized what's happening here. Like I'm
Yeah.
just doing exactly what I'm accusing them of doing, and my only fear that I had, it just came through, like it happened, but I'm actually just still here in my room. Like, why am I,
Correct.
why am I making such a fuss about this?
It's
It's so
you're
strange.
you're totally on you're totally on target with that. I was looking down at my phone to try to do a search. I'm not going to share it on screen, but there was a post I made. This is back in July. I couldn't find it, but I did find the text. I'm going to read it to you and see if it resonates for you. Um, when I first joined X, didn't necessarily have a goal. It wasn't to do this, these conversations recorded podcast. I don't like calling it that. I'll call it a conversation. And I initially had started kind of posting about, more of like the travesties of the world. It was kind of political framed and whatever, and that got lots more views than what I get now. And that felt good up until a point where it didn't. And there's something I'll read. I came to this, and I'll just read it to you. It's pretty short. So I said, when you get attacked, let it happen. Handle it with grace. Support them, even if they block you. They, in quotations, they won't understand the support, and that's the point. It's not for them. It's for the people ready to see, just sunlight. So meaning, it might not be for you and I. If you wanted to decide to attack me on a post for some reason, then that's just like you'd mentioned. It's you wanting to. You're looking through your own lens, and you don't agree with it, and you want to speak up and say something.
Yeah.
Or if I do believe some of those negative comments are just bot driven, and there's no one behind it. So do you really want to fight with someone that's not even behind a screen? And when I posted that in July, it got, I don't know, probably a couple 100,000 views, and I was blown away to think this must really resonate with people about saying it's not about me trying to defend myself. It's not about me trying to be anything other than I am. And maybe all those views aren't all real people, but if bots are then wanting to up that, that's wonderful. Amplify it all you want. But it made me really realize, probably months later, that those attacks are a way you can take something that you could really think is negative, and gosh, why am I even doing this? Why should I even share my story? No one cares, or if people do care, they're beating me down. It's really for other people to kind of see what that means for them. And I think more people now. Oops, I'm going to knock this over. I think more people now kind of that kind of resonates for them more. They realize that reading comments and doing things on social media really can help other people in ways we just probably didn't know at the start. So I love that you're doing what you're doing. Do you think you get more negative comments now than you do positive? What do you think now?
No, absolutely not.
Yeah,
I rarely get negative comments, and sometimes I even question that. Like, okay, am I playing it too safe? Then am I like,
right.
are there parts of me which, and yes, there are parts of me which I haven't expressed in my writing, and then the idea is, oh, because I don't think this is that relevant, you know.
Right.
But it, yeah, sometimes I question that. Another part of that is that I don't really write in a way um, that would necessarily get a lot of views. Sometimes it happens, but in general, my posts get a low amount of reach. So I also just don't have the type of exposure where suddenly, and I think this is how I would see it, where suddenly a post gets exposed to social circles way beyond mine. It's
Yeah.
obvious that the people I'm friends with on X, that I have some sort of resonance with them.
Right.
So if it doesn't go beyond that circle, I do, there's disagreement, right? But it's like stimulating each other. Like, somebody might poke a hole in something I said and they make me see that I was wrong,
Yep.
but I'm not getting attacked.
Yeah.
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 I
No,
had it like once or twice on a bigger post, and it was kind of beautiful because the place where the attack was coming, like the worldview underneath it, was so alien to me
right.
that I found it enriching. That I was like, oh wow, like there's another human, and this is how they experience things, and it's mind blowing that it's a thing. And I've never met such a human because they live in other places
Yeah.
that I don't walk through. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I've found, and maybe you have too, some of the posts that I've done in the past where I'll post something and maybe it's controversial or something, and I make a point for me not to delete anything. I, I've I've posted so much; it's probably over 70,000 now on X. So
Wow.
surely they can find some post there. Yeah, I posted a lot.
So
I don't post as
you
much
did
now
that
though.
in 2 years? No, in a year and a half.
In a year. In a
Wow,
year, yeah,
you've been active.
it was a lot. So I'm not in the business of deleting things. Meaning, my intent is not to. If I change my mind on something, then I just move to a different place. And I don't get it yet. Maybe at some point it gets, in a larger audience where people will say, well, you said this on this date, and how could you feel that way? And I'll meet them there where it is. I won't deny that it happened. I was
Mm,
there in a place where I felt like it. But I think it's good that it's left out there because it was how I felt at that point, or the emotion that I felt. And so we all should be open and truthful about what we felt. And if that turns people away, that's fine. If it turns people,
yeah.
towards us, that's great too. You mentioned about writing. What's your preference on how you write? Obviously, based on your name on X, it's PepTalksBlog. So I assume you have a blog that out there that you regularly probably do.
Yeah.
Is that where you do most of your writing, or is it other places too?
It's well, I think I do most of my writing on X, like just because it's short form and I do it fast.
Yeah.
Um, so yes, but I actually I wish it was just Pep Talks, but that handle is taken everywhere. I'm trying to contact the people, and I just own it. But I started a blog, um, about in exactly 10 years ago. I
Okay.
started a blog.
Wow. Yeah.
It wasn't intended to like be a business kind of thing. It was actually it was to get people off my back that would say you should start a blog. Like
Right.
it frequently came up, and I
It's a
said,
good
yeah, yeah,
motivation.
okay, you know what, guys, I'll start a blog,
That's right. That's
and
right.
uh, and I started writing, and then those same people that like told me to start, they would share it back. It was just Facebook then. I think that was where the people were.
Yeah.
Um, and then so that attracted like a very small readership, but they were very I guess devoted is the word. So I would allow donations, and I would get huge donations from people who said, I read your article, and then I did this in my life, and everything changed, and I had
Yeah.
never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
Um, and now I'm actually going on a side tangent because I'm telling you where I started writing. But I think if this feels interesting to you, I
Yeah.
might.
Let's do it. Go for it.
Okay. And yeah, I was just excited about the impact that I could make just by sharing my perspectives. Um, and then at some point, it just freaked me out because I
Yeah.
thought, well, my blog is about personal growth, right? So at least that was like the initial premise. I didn't yet realize what it was going towards.
Right. Well, especially
Yeah,
over 10 years, I imagine it's
yeah,
grown in different ways that you hadn't anticipated, which is a good thing.
yeah.
That's good.
But if it's about personal growth, that means that I will grow and I will learn that my initial article was not accurate, and but people are now reading it looking for guidance for their lives, and
Right.
so I might be misguiding them without knowing them. And it's just like it completely stopped me from writing for years. So I was like, I cannot handle this idea, and I
Yeah.
was scared of making an impact.
you you felt like you weren't the expert enough of your experience that you're like, well, what if I'm taking up? Let me
Yeah,
ask you something. I want to interject and then keep
yeah,
going. Um, I will share something with me that I am working on trusting other people. And what I mean by that is when I put something out, probably initially I was like, well, who am I to say what someone should do? And people were listening, and I'm like, gosh, am I guiding them along a path? And I've come to realize right here and now that I want and will and need to trust people to read something that I might create and take from that what they will. Either, gosh, this guy, really seems to help me in what I'm doing, or that's not how I feel and that's not the way the world works. Either way, I'm trusting them to make their own decision, to discern for themselves. And maybe that's what some of you wanting to pause there for a little bit of time. You were maybe grappling with the same thing that I am, of trusting that people can read
yes,
something and see it from you, read something and see it from someone else, myself, or anyone, and go with it and have their own free will and choice to decide for themselves.
yeah. I love that, and the parallel with the story of the comments that you were mentioning. Yeah, and in retrospect, what was really happening for me is that I was both overreaching my responsibility as a writer
Yeah.
and not taking enough of it. Because I was overreaching because it is not my responsibility what someone does with
Yeah.
anything they read that I write. But I was also not taking enough responsibility in that I was writing from the perspective that my experience was truthful and advice rather than saying, here's my perspective.
Yep.
And because that's owned, it's like, well, my experience is this. I'm not telling you that you should do it,
Right.
but it might help you. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I wasn't doing that because I think I was kind of claiming like my place in some way that I thought I didn't have before. and and so yeah, after that, when I had stopped writing, I explored connection and all of that, and then I realized, well, actually I do love writing.
Yeah.
I just need to write in a way where everyone's agency and responsibility is respected, like you
Yep.
say. I need to trust others,
Yep.
and I need to recognize the limits of my own expertise,
Right.
but also recognize where I have expertise and not shy away from owning that, because then I'm doing a disservice too.
I
And
agree.
yeah, so
Yeah.
it's an interesting balance.
It is. I tend to think that and believe in my heart that everyone is a portion of the universe experiencing themselves. So you have your own lens, and I don't know your background, if you're spiritual or religious, or and you can describe that to whatever level you want to. But I'm experiencing this through my own lens. You are too, and neither view is wrong or right, and neither view is going to be the same. I say all that to say, though, when you wrote about your experience of kind of where you've gone through in your life, which I thought was really powerful, I saw pieces of me in that, and I saw pieces of me that could have been me that I didn't go down that path,
Yeah,
maybe to like some of the levels that you might have gone to. Which again is not a judgment; it's just more of, yeah, I could look back, especially in my 20s. I'll be 44 next week, so I
you
don't
look
know our
great,
ages, but
by the way.
but yeah, I'll
Yeah,
so I saw pieces of me and points in time where I could have decided to end up in the same place probably that you found yourself in, or I could at least I could see that and be like, I can see this person and appreciate what they're sharing, and either I've been there or I've been through portions of that, and that helps a connection. I think,
yeah.
and I'm sure many other people have seen that too. So I love that you started writing again. So I'm grateful that you started doing that. And I think you even captured some of this. Well, not think, I know you did write a book. I don't know if was that kind of a building off point from your blog? Because I think the book is called Effortless. I'd love to hear about that a
Yeah,
little bit if you're willing to share.
yeah. And yeah, just want to share that I was listening to what you said, and it really resonated with me, and how I perceive other people's posts, and like they show me parts of myself that I
Yeah,
didn't know, or other ways. So yeah, I
yeah.
love that perspective. Yeah. So the book, I mean, it contains some parts of what was on my blog. Eventually, the blog became a sporadic thing. Like
Yeah,
I occasionally write a post, and then I try to make an effort, ironically, to like go deep on it and say, okay, if I'm writing it, I'm gonna write it because I really
right.
want to, and not, because I have a schedule to meet, like back in the day
Right.
or something. Um, the book kind of came to me by procrastinating.
Okay.
Yeah, which
Deadlines are
is
good. I hear from other people
yeah,
that deadlines are good. Like, I'm going to do this by this date, and you get closer. And procrastination doesn't work for me in that way as a motivation. I tend to if there's a deadline, then I want to meet it before that. That's just sort of my thing, or at
yeah.
least it used to be. But yeah, tell me more about that. So you did you feel pressure to write that and get it out, kind of like you did the
Well,
blog?
I wanted to write another book, and I still intend to write it. And I had it outlined, and I was like, okay, this is a project, and I want to get it out by
Right.
December. And every time I tried to, nothing came out.
Yeah.
And so then I just stopped trying. And then I just lived my life. And sometimes I would wake up, and some words would come to me, and I write them down, and I wouldn't publish them because they weren't really fit to be blog posts. They were like, not, they lacked context,
Okay.
and they were too long to be tweets, and it was kind of like, didn't have use for it, but I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
And
Did you?
eventually the book kind of emerged by itself. And then I realized, oh wait, I'm writing another book here, and I once again try to capture that in a project. It's like,
Right.
okay, now let me turn this into a book.
Yeah.
And yeah, that didn't happen. So then I again said, well, maybe I'm writing a book, maybe not, who knows. And I just had, some random days. Like one time I was stuck in the airport for, I think, 72 hours, and most of the book was just written by sitting there and writing down my thoughts. And then there was another instant like that, just like a random moment where I had other plans, but like the words knocked and
Yeah.
said, hey, write me. uh, and I finished the book, and then I realized, when I saw what the book was about,
Yep.
not only was it about itself and the process of how it happened, but it also was kind of a journal of the growth that I had gone through
Yeah.
in the last year, which was about no longer trying to become a certain kind of person, or
Right.
have certain kinds of habits, or be better in any way, and just seeing, well, what is it that I seem to want to do here? Oh, it seems like I want to procrastinate and write a different book. Well, I'll just do it until I no longer want to, and maybe one day there's a book.
Yeah.
And I started living my life like that, and everything went so much easier. It's like, oh, I can just let things happen. I didn't know that.
Yeah. what I'm hearing in your words is the word surrender can confuse people. I
Mm.
surrendered over to the process. Surrendering for me does not mean giving up. It means giving over. So you're giving yourself over to that process, and the thoughts that you wrote down either in the airport or just that come to you, they may be a building block to something different that you're not even aware of yet, but just accepting that
Yeah.
that's happening. Or maybe you start out with a goal and it ends up being one or two or however many books, or maybe it's a post, something like that. I love that you're holding space for yourself to just see where it goes,
Yeah.
and not be so attached to I must do this at this point, or it's a failure. I think everything is a success. I'll share with you, and I haven't done them yet, but there's been at least on two occasions where it's either been a post that's inspired me, or I've been, of all things, taking a shower and thought of this in my mind and had almost like this image where at some point in time I will do it. Not yet, but I've kind of written a script, which I never thought think of me as a script writer. I've written a script of like a short like video that might be an intro to a podcast, or it might be something in general that like takes a concept and then puts it down into words with actors and other things like that. It might only be a couple minutes long, but I have those saved away. And when the time is right, I'll feel called to do that, and and someone will just emerge that can shoot things like commercials and stuff like that. It's not a
Yeah.
commercial, but like, and it'll happen. And in some ways, I feel like it already has, meaning not just that I've written the words down in some of the dialogue that I'd want to have in it, but it's like it's already been recorded and already been processed and already been out. It just hasn't happened in this lifetime yet. I don't know. Have you ever felt like that? Like, do you feel like this second book? I think you mentioned a second book that you're working on. Do you feel like it's already been written? You're just waiting to discover it, and it's going to come to you
Yes.
over time.
Yes. And we can theorize. I have no clue what it means, but yes, yeah. One thing I've already noticed now. So now the second book is coming to me, and what I
Yeah,
now realize is that the book I thought I wanted to write,
yeah,
it only makes sense to someone who has read the first two books.
right.
And I thought, oh, so I didn't know why I was writing the other one, but something like you say, there like could almost be like the book exists somewhere, and it's kind of inviting me and saying like, hey, I exist, but for me to be witnessed in this timeline that you're on,
Yep,
I'm gonna need someone to help me get born.
right.
Like physically in that timeline. So could you do this for me? And I even wonder, and pure speculation, like if there are other people across the world who are also being invited and might do. And I like to believe that that's the case, but who
I
knows? Yeah.
I agree. There's two concepts I want to share with you. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. One is called a little more sciencey, quorum sensing, Quorum. Quorum sensing is where something as small as like cells, like on an amoeba level, or you and I, if one starts thinking of something, and let's talk about it in human terms. If one human starts thinking about it and writing it down, all of a sudden, magically, in another state or another country on the other side of the world starts thinking in the same terms, almost
Mm.
like we're plugged into the same collective consciousness overall. That is what I believe. There's another example of like, I think it's called like the 100th monkey or something like that,
So what?
and whether or not it's actually
Okay.
occurred. Have you heard of that?
No,
Okay.
no.
The 100th monkey is that by the time it gets to the 100th person or being or whatever that's thinking about it, it almost builds like an inflection point where that kind of starts spiraling out of light reflecting other people in that. And then all of a sudden they start getting the ideas. That's even happened with some science breakthroughs.
Like
Um,
critical mass of the
yeah. Yeah.
idea.
Like I want to say it was maybe back in the 1940s or 1950s where it was thought untouchable that someone would be able to run like a sub 5 or a sub 4 minute mile. They thought, okay, this is the physical limitations that someone can only run a mile at 5 minutes and 17 seconds or something like that. And then when that person, and I don't remember if it's 4 minutes or if it's five, it's probably four. But when the first person broke that record of a sub 4 minute mile, Then all of a sudden the record was broken again, like in 2 weeks, and then in another month. And I'm not sure where it is right now. Someone can look it up, but it's like once someone does it, it inspires other people to say, well, then we don't have limits. We can just do whatever we want. The only limits that we have are up here. Um, anyway, that little bit of a tangent, but I think
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
kind of what I'm hearing you say to me. And it's beautiful that what you're not saying, Pep, what you're not saying is, well, I need to write this right now before someone else takes it. I don't
Oh,
believe
yeah,
that's
no,
the case.
yeah.
You have your own lens and you're unique. So however you would write that is not going to be the same way that someone else might. The words might seem the same, but you're connecting in a way that is very specifically you. And
No,
it's beautiful.
that's a really beautiful idea. Yeah. So it's like maybe you are conveying something through your podcast.
Right.
And that same thing that already exists and is being conveyed through your podcast, maybe someone else is turning it into a Netflix show. And
Yeah.
on the surface, they look like distinct
Yeah.
uh, things,
Yeah.
but they're like manifestations of the same thing being called into being.
Yeah.
Some through music, and then and I don't know what that means, and I don't know if it's true, but I do observe sometimes like a zeitgeist emerging
Right.
through all these different mediums, and people speaking different languages and art forms, and that's how we uniquely express the same thing that's been brewing in society, that's been happening.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Language, I think language is a beautiful thing. I've talked about this a little bit before. I'd love to get your feedback that language can be really good. And if, we both speak the same language, you can communicate on levels that you wouldn't otherwise be able to. But there's also things in people's, just the way they speak or their eye contact or lack thereof. You can get communicated to by other people even if they don't speak the same language. You
Mm.
have to be more you have to hold a space for that. You have to be more kind of open to it, and you've got to be a little more quiet. You've got to listen. You've got to kind of hear those things. It's a very cool thing. um, so speaking of language, and I don't know if you want to give your background or not, but I don't know, I can't place the accent. I'm thinking probably somewhere in Europe, but you can tell us where if you want to.
Mhm.
What are other languages? Do you speak other languages?
Well, it depends on what the barrier for speaking is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my accent is Flemish, and
Okay.
yeah, once it's probably hard to unhear because it's a strong one.
Yeah.
But I do speak English as my first language,
Okay.
so I don't like it's not often that I speak Flemish or Dutch,
Yeah.
unless there's a person where I met them long
Right.
time ago, and that's like the base thing.
Yeah.
Because of living in Belgium, I understand most German and French, but to say
Mhm.
that I speak it would be an insult to the French and
Con,
yeah,
con,
and my partner speaks Spanish, so I understand Spanish.
yeah.
Speak it a little better than French, but not to the point where I would say that it's a language I possess either.
I gotcha. What is English the language you feel most comfortable in, or when you meet
Yes.
someone, say from Belgium, do you have a comfort there too because of that kind of cultural connection?
Yeah, it's a good question. No, I would say I'm most comfortable in English. I can I can obviously transition to Dutch or Flemish, but it's also like in Belgium, the dialect of where I'm from, the accent here locally is hard to understand for people in other cities. So it's not even that relevant. Like if I speak the local language, I need to adjust anyway,
Yeah,
and make an effort. Yeah.
I understand. Yeah, I not in the same different realm as you, but I will tell you this is an interesting story to me anyway. When I went to university, when I went to college in Pennsylvania, which is where I'm from, there's a heavy, thick accent there, which you don't hear right now for me.
Yeah,
But if
not
I
at all.
talk to anyone from home, it comes right back,
Mhm.
and it's more of an accent that kind of you don't enunciate as much. All the words kind of blend together and they feel like jumbled. And
Same.
when I went to university, someone asked me on maybe day three, and they said, "What part of Texas are you from?" And they asked it because it sounded almost like a Southern accent, the way in which that dialect is. And I said, well, I'm from south of here, but not that far. Like, and right then I made a choice for myself to kind of neutralize that accent, other than when I talk with someone from home, especially if I talk with my family. It just
Yeah.
comes right back. My kids will tell me if I'm talking on the phone there, if I go back, and then I'll talk to them on their phone. They're like, yep, you've gone back to Pennsylvania because that's what you sound like, which is Pennsylvania Dutch. It's Dutch German.
Mhm.
It's not a dialect that's like a German. It's not. It's not even a German accent, but it's just interesting the way that you kind of adapt or talk to. This kind
Yeah.
of brings me back to something I wanted to ask you about, either in your life or maybe when you were writing that blog to start with, or even in the story that you shared about yourself. Um, the concept of persona. Um,
Mm.
Having a persona that extends to the outer world, where you're like, okay, I need to be this person in a job, or I need to be this person in this culture or in this town. I'm going to adapt that persona, which really isn't you. It's not Pep. It's not Adam. It's just whatever you think the outer world wants to see, which I think is somewhat baked in, like ego or fear, or things like that. Once you let go of that persona and you just start being you, whatever language you speak or whatever you want your voice to sound like, I think that's really powerful, and I think it resonates with people because you're being authentic. Do you think that persona was something that you either grappled with younger or still are? Do you is that
Oh.
something?
Yeah, that it's a rabbit hole. Could talk about it for 2 hours. So and that we don't have time for that. So, but I still want to give you
Yeah,
okay. Short answer: yes, intensely grappled with it. Um, and there's a few things. So my parents kind of raised me in a weird way where they didn't try to shape my persona or tell me like, hey, this is inappropriate and you need to
right.
do this that way. So had a lot more freedom in how I was raised. Then, at age 3, preschool, I met the world,
Yeah.
and all those people did want to reinforce it
Oh yeah.
violently,
Yep.
um, which got me ostracized and isolated for many years. And so I didn't develop a proper like ego, I would say, in that period, like or ego strength or persona or any of that. And I got very awkward. I'm still a bit awkward, that's in how I was, in how I grew up.
Right.
Um, and then at some point, like adolescence, my lack of that made me popular
Right. Oh yeah.
because everyone there struggles to be themselves, and I found it easy.
Yeah.
And then I made that authenticity my persona.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like kind of a mind fuck, right? So then try to highlight all these things and affirm how different I was, and in the end, it made me very stuck because then I got attached to these things that I said, oh, I am this person, I have these interests, this
Right.
quality in this situation, I should behave like that,
Right.
which I imagine is like a universal thing. And like, I don't think this is special to me. I think most people have those things, and um, that ended up working against me to a degree again because now if I'm always highlighting my difference,
Yeah.
then I'm really hindering connection in some way. And then I tried really hard to find the common humanity,
Right.
and I did, and it felt so good to be like humbled and say, I'm no different from you. We all have our own experiences, and like we bring them together, and really brought me down
Yeah.
in this more grounded place. Um, but to do so, I was still denying the things that seemed to make me me.
Right.
Again.
Well,
Yeah, and so there's this endless cycle going on, and I think right now I have this sense of freedom where I can be what feels like me in each moment as that fluctuates, and also attuned to the social role that I'm in
yeah.
without that meaning that I fake anything. But yeah, to talk about the process of that would take a long time.
Well, I like I mentioned before we pressed record. I'd love to have you back, and we can dig into more things. You know, this is our initiation, if you will, of getting to know each other. So
Yeah.
I'd love to dig in whatever amount of time that you want to give to that. Yeah, it's interesting that you say about, what I'm hearing in your words is that you get on a phone call or a conversation like this, and if you have a lens of, okay, well, what part am I playing right now? What person am I supposed to be? As
Mm,
opposed to just saying, I'm going to just be me where I'm at right now on April, what is it, April 18th. Where am I at right now? And knowing
yeah.
that there's authenticity in that. That's huge. I mean, it's a huge thing for anyone, including those of you watching this. Just be you. It sounds really overly simplistic, but it's all that you need to be. Just be yourself, and yourself is going to change over time. You're going to move in whatever area you want to, and I'll say it for you, Pep. There's only one Pep in this world. Right? You're a unique
Who knows?
individual, and it would be a shame that you would deny anyone the ability to meet who you are. Same
Yeah.
thing for me. Same thing for anyone else. Just be yourself. Um, I wanted to go back to a couple of things you mentioned about these books. So I think so. The first one you have written, I think it's on your website, and people can
Yeah.
find that link. I think it's called Effortless. So you mentioned one book, and I guess that one's written and out there for people to look at if they want to. And then there's a second book that I think you said you're working on, and then there's a third book as well that may actually be the book that you're ultimately
Which
getting
I
to.
actually intended to write. Yeah.
Right. And it sounds like you're saying you're almost going to need to at least understand some of the mechanisms in book one and book two to even get to book three. Did I have that right? Is that correct?
Yeah, and not necessarily in terms of intellectual understanding. Like it's my goal that when you read the second book, you don't need to like you can. It's coherent as a book, right?
Right.
You can read it,
Yeah.
um, and it kind of parallels everything you just said. Where the book Effortless is a lot about that, about authenticity and allowing yourself to be as you are. Um, when that becomes a hyper focus, this authenticity and like who am I and I will be me,
Yeah.
this can take us away from connection with others.
Yeah.
But when we don't have it, we can also not connect to others because we're not in touch with ourselves. So what is there to connect from?
Right.
Um, yeah, so the book I'm working on is about the connection with each other and
Yeah.
how we can connect with these people around us. But a lot of it might not be emotionally accessible unless the first book is integrated. It might
I
be
understand.
intellectually accessible, and
Yeah.
but there could be emotions that make it challenging.
Right.
Um, and the book I actually want to write is about truth and how truth has been my therapy. Um, but then it doesn't make sense yet why, but I'm seeing it.
Right. It's
It's
okay
really
that it's
yes,
okay that
okay,
it
okay, I
doesn't
can
make
put it
sense.
into words.
Yeah.
Um, it's really hard for me to recognize truth without connecting that we have these 7 billion different perspectives on it,
Right.
right? So so for me to even go there
Yeah.
requires a certain like epistemological humility
Yep.
and willingness to be with others as they are and where they are and what they see,
Yeah.
and to have the capacity to be willing to do that. I must trust that I can fully be in another person's world without losing myself.
Right. Do
So
you
that's
trust?
why the first book is about finding yourself and fully
Yeah.
being authentic,
I
then
I get it.
connecting with others with humility and dignity.
Yeah.
And eventually I can write my book about truth, which is what I wanted to do.
Well, and it could be as much about you finding that for yourself, so that when it comes time for that third book. And by the way, have you written the second one yet? Is it published? The first one's published,
No,
I
no,
know.
it's outlined.
Okay.
It will be published when it is,
Yeah.
because I'm approaching it the same way as the previous one. I'm
Yeah.
kind of letting the book write itself, and I vaguely feel this. intuition that it might be released before the end of the year, but who
Right.
knows?
Right. Well, that process, which you're not in control of, the process will
Yeah,
take as long as it does. It's beautiful that you're allowing that to happen, that you're sharing that here, that people can hear that, and whether or not they read the books, I think is not the important piece. It's the piece of you sharing with trust of yourself and other people to hear. This is a process for me, and I'm not sure where the end game is. I
yeah,
actually think I was talking with someone the other day, a good friend of mine, George, who comes on these conversations often. And he was like, a lot of people say when they start a business of all things, they're like, well, you've got to have end goals and you've got to have all these things set out and then you got to meet them. And he's like, that's not always the case. Sometimes the best kind of ideas just start because they start. That first step is the biggest. And it just takes on a life of its own. And then you look back later and you can celebrate what it was. And if you'd have put goals on yourself, you might have limited yourself of what you were doing. Like,
yeah,
yes, it's good to be laser focused on something if you have a deadline, but if you're just letting the process take itself through, then by all means, just let that process happen, and trust yourself that you're not going to lose yourself in it. You're actually gaining wisdom and understanding as you move in over time. I think it's beautiful.
yeah.
And
And I love that. Yeah, it's a
yeah,
nice thing. Some
yeah.
ideas just start the outcome.
The well, if it's end of the year, great. I'd love to talk to you before then. We can check in on that and many other things because I think we'll have lots to talk about. You'd mentioned a little bit ago, and I know we've got just a little bit more time, and we'll wrap up.
Yeah.
Um,
I
you
can
mentioned
go
about
like 5 or 10 longer if needed because
okay,
I'm enjoying this too. So
good. I am too.
yeah,
I am too, and I hope everyone watching is as well. This is beautiful. You mentioned about something a little bit different. You mentioned about holding space for other people or for sessions.
yeah.
Are there is there like in-person sessions that you give for people? Is it like a weekend retreat type thing? Like, can you tell me a little bit about that and maybe
Yeah,
how that came about?
yeah. So initially, what I just did was host community events together with my partner. It was actually her idea to start that and just create spaces where people are welcomed as they are and like encouraged to connect from that place with each other.
Yeah.
Um, I try to think, how can I make some games that facilitate this?
Okay. Tell me about
And
them.
then I found out that people all over the world were already doing this, and so that's it's called authentic relating games.
Okay.
It grew out of other things like I think like the integral center, circling. So there are other connective practices and made accessible through games because in play we learn differently by experiencing it.
Right. Are they all in person or are they online too?
Yeah, they're usually in person, and so I
Okay.
started training in this and hosting events on it. Um, Most of my audience is non-local. I've traveled a lot,
Yeah.
and like the people on X, a very small percentage of them are from my hometown. Very small, maybe less than 1%. So
Where have you traveled to? What areas have you done so far?
good, it's a good question. Well, most of Europe, that's close. Some of Africa, South America, Asia, not much of the US. Been to California and Colorado, and that's it.
Okay.
And nothing of Oceania yet.
Nothing of what?
Nothing of Oceania or the Pacific. Like haven't been
Okay.
there at all.
I got you.
But yeah, so did a lot of exploring in the past, and then stay in touch with those people.
Yeah.
But well, not only is my local community smaller, they already get to go for free because they come in my house. So to turn it into like a business, it made most sense to do it online, which is not
Right.
exactly the same because you can't hold physical space.
Right.
But I found it translates quite well. There's still a lot of depth and connection possible. So that's what I do most in
Okay.
like group. I run a group cohort, which you can't join, so this is not advertising. I might open the doors again later. And I do free workshops every Monday, which anyone can join and don't include a lot of teaching. It's just like games and we explore a topic. And
Okay.
then, you know, in the process, you get to know yourself and others more deeply and you relax. So that's the main
Yeah.
benefit. But I also do a lot of one-on-one sessions with people where I apply the attitude to self-exploration.
Okay.
Um,
I
yeah.
would love to take part in these. So I think you mentioned the cohort. Maybe you mentioned cohort is not open right now, but these
No,
Monday sessions. So I'm interested. I'm sure others will be too. How would I join that, or how can I join
okay.
that?
Well, on my website, which I'm just going to say it, it's peptalksblog.com.
I'll put the
There's
links on all on the
okay.
video too, so we'll have it.
There's an events tab, and
Okay.
yeah, any event that's not part of a cohort is listed there.
Okay.
So every Monday there is one, and you can just RSVP for it. That gets you listed to enter, and then sometimes there's 5 people, sometimes there's 20. Really depends on what the topic is, how the week's going.
Love it.
It's yeah on Mondays, an hour and a half,
Okay.
and that gives you a flavor, like no like a taste of what I do. It's not
Yeah.
super deep, but it's enjoyable. And if there would be a one-on-one session, it's the same thing, but just spacious and focused on you.
All right.
And yeah.
That sounds beautiful. Do you have any? Well, I know we can go look at the events tab, and people can too. But do you have any upcoming? If you don't mind just sharing that right here, are there any upcoming
Yeah.
events? I know you do these Monday things that are online, but are you traveling anywhere across the globe for any that are in person right now at this point?
No, no, not. I don't know if I will this year. I
Okay.
was doing it a lot, but I noticed I have to like dial down my workload a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, Sometimes I get the opportunity to be in a learning position with the people who train me or Art International, and then I travel there. Might post about it on X to get like that people can join there. Um, but I'm not facilitating anything that is self-organized or collaborated at the moment.
Okay.
Um,
Well, I definitely want to check out the events tab, and like I said, I'll put your website up on these uploads, and then people can check it out too. But I'd love to at least be able to join those Mondays, and definitely want to have you back because there's many more things I'm sure we can talk about. And the wonderful thing is, I don't even know everything that we're going to talk about over these conversations. Just like many times, it'll take on a life of its own, which is beautiful. Um, do you mind sharing where your location is? There might be some people who are in the same location. Do you mind
oh
sharing
yeah,
the ones you have in person? Where are they?
yeah. So right now I'm in Belgium, and
Okay.
and here I do have an event upcoming 2 weeks from
Okay.
now. It's the last in-person one that I want to do here. So
Okay.
you can find that on the website if you happen to live here.
Yeah,
Um,
I live in the U.S. I live in North Carolina. So
yeah,
and I didn't realize that you're probably 5 or 6 hours ahead in Belgium. I think it's 6 hours ahead, depending on daylight savings time, which is always fun.
yeah.
But yeah, I'll put all those things. I'll put your website out on the uploads, and I'll put your X blog too. So
Thank
I definitely want to have you back. Hang on for a couple minutes once we conclude this, and we'll keep the conversation going. Anyone, feel free to reach out directly to Pep either on X or use his website to find that information. And I appreciate everyone making the time and holding the space with us to have this. I love it. I love it.
and
Pep,
I
anything you
appreciate
want to wrap
you
us
for
up with?
that
Anything
too.
else you want to share?
What did you say, sir?
Sorry, is there anything else you want to wrap us up with? Take us home on?
No, not really. Want to thank you also for inviting me, for creating this space. Yeah, I also have a lot of curiosity about you, like because of the nature of this. A lot of the questions were for me, right? And,
Right.
and so part of me is like, oh, there's so much I wonder about now. Where do your questions come from? Who are you?
Yeah.
And I hope
It's
that in future conversations, yeah,
I am an open book. You're welcome to ask me anything. It's interesting and it's very humbling. So thank you. I've had other people too ask that. So
really,
because of this style, it's more of an interviewer, interviewee type situation. I don't want to make it too formal. I used to write down questions and I got rid of that. It felt too scripted. I looked too scripted.
yeah,
Um, but I'm happy to share about me and other people. Yeah, I shouldn't have sold myself short to say, wow, people are interested in hearing my story as well, which is really cool. I am all for it. I'm an
yeah.
open book. So we'll do
Well,
that
you,
next
you did
time.
bring in plenty of your experience and perspective, and it was always cool. And at the same time, it's like part of this is, I guess, that you know you are giving this space to me, and that feels really wonderful to receive.
Yeah.
And your space is the meta space of the whole podcast. You're in all of them.
Yeah.
But
That's
as a
right.
person, I'm curious about you in this
Yeah.
moment, right? So it's different because we have these different perspectives. I only
Right.
see the little glimpse of this, and
I
you know
know, I
yeah,
know. I am happy to tear down all walls. You can hear it all.
yeah.
I'm happy to do it. So yeah, if that's on the next one, great. Or one in the future, wonderful too. So hang on for a couple minutes, Pep. I
With
appreciate the
pleasure. Yeah.
trust and the willingness, and thank you everyone for tuning in. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye. Thank you for being here.